All right, it is just after 5:30. Thank you so much for joining for Can I actually afford a home to buy a home in 2026? Essentially, the reason for this is I saw that that was one of the number one um, number one Googled questions is like, can I actually afford to buy a home in 2026? And so essentially today's webinar is just to kind of gain clarity of like, what does buying a home look like? Why would somebody want to buy a home? Why would somebody want to keep renting? Because sometimes the answer isn't always to buy a home. And so that's what we're looking to address today. Again, if you've got questions,
Está bien, Jamie, así lo vamos a dejar.
feel free to pop them in the chat. Um, So who am I? I am Danielle Anderson. I am a house hacker, a contributing author to a first-time homebuyer book to think out, rethinking how you buy a home, and a top 1% mortgage lender in the industry who helps clients make money off their primary residence. I personally bought my first house at 24 with the help of roommates, and then later turned that into an Airbnb rental, gaining additional income from the home that I live in, one helping me just afford a home. So if that's ever something that clients want to do, I also talk about that, and we'll talk about house hacking a little bit through this webinar as well. So, first of all, it is a big deal to buy a home. The average homeowner has 4D times the net worth than that of a renter. In one study, a renter had about $6,300 to their name, whereas with the equity of their home, they had about $255,000 in equity. That is why I am so passionate about helping first-time homebuyers get into the game of building wealth through real estate because it's a slow play over time. But what can you actually afford? I broke it down by income just to kind of give you a general idea of, okay, if I make about $85,000 a year, or maybe I make 40,000 and my husband makes 45,000, then combined income, we make $85,000 a year. What does that look like in a purchase price affordability? Now, these examples assume that someone has absolutely no debt. They don't have a car payment. They don't have student loans. That's not true for a lot of people. And I'm going to get into an example of that in a second. But at least throwing out these numbers, it kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, if we've got a household income of $100,000, that means I can buy about a $500,000 home. If we've got a household income of $120,000, we could buy about a $589,000 home if we paid off all of our debt that we might have. And I won't go through all of these, but you can see the chart here, breaking it down. 200K, almost $1 million. This is no student loans, no car payments, no credit cards, no child support, etc. Most people have a little bit of debt. So what does that look like? This is an example of somebody with, maybe they've got a little bit of credit card debt. They have to pay just the minimums, $200 a month. Maybe they have a car payment of $400, student loans, $150. And so their overall debt payment is $750 in debt payments a month. That's going to reduce your purchasing power by almost 100,000. So now you're looking at 319 without an HOA. If you make 85,000 at 100,000, that's a purchase price of almost 400K. 120, you're looking at almost half a million or 500,000 with a max monthly payment of 37, etc. So a good rule of thumb is 50% debt to income ratio. What a lender is looking for in a qualification is that your gross pay divided by 12 months, so if you make $120,000 a year, divided by 12 months, that's $10,000 a month. You can't have a monthly payment higher than 5K a month. So all of your monthly payments combined could not be higher than 5K a month. So that is just a really good rule of thumb. And Mina just typed in the chat that she can't hear anything. Can everybody else hear me? If you can give me a thumbs up or type in okay, so it sounds like Mina, it might just be your computer where you can't hear anything. Okay, I'm glad other people can hear me. So that's a good rule of thumb, is about 50% debt to income ratio. Now, that doesn't mean you want to buy the max qualification, because if you buy the max qualification, then you're going to feel pretty house poor. Now, as a lender, I have to go through all the like disclosures. This is just for education and illustrative purposes only. It's not a commitment to lend or offer credit or guarantee of qualification. All the rates and loan terms and everything that I'm doing all along this presentation are subject to change. And everybody is a little bit different. What property you're buying, what your credit score is, are you buying a primary, your second home, etc. So just throwing out the legal disclosures here. My favorite word in mortgage is it depends, because that's truly, there is no one size fits all mortgage. And it is all based on their goals. So a good rule of thumb is, one, paying down debt helps you qualify for more than saving up more money for a bigger down payment. That is the number one thing I see with first-time home buyers, is they're stacking up savings for a 3% down payment, or maybe they're trying to get to 20%, but yet they still have debt payments that they need to take care of. And it's actually better to pay down debt to help you qualify for more, because a home loan is amortized over 30 years. Other debt payments might be amortized in a much shorter time frame. So saving up $10,000 could be equivalent of just paying down that $1,500 debt payment. But that's why you should work with a lender to tell you exactly what you should be paying off to get to where you want to go. So just because you can qualify, let's just go back to this chart of like, okay, let's say you have $750 in debt. You make combined $120,000. Maybe you're a married couple or you're living with your fiance and you both make $60K. And you can get to that, $500,000, around that $500,000 purchase range. But then you get here and you're like, well, I'm renting at $2,150. Based on just a quick Google search, the 2-bedroom apartment in Denver ranges from $2,150 to $2,300. So like, well, shoot, I'm renting for $2,150, and Danielle's telling me that if I want a $500,000, $500,000 home, my monthly payment's going to be more like $3,700. Why do I want to buy? So let's take a look at this example. So it's a $424,000 home, starter home. That's the first thing that I like to get into first-time home buyers' minds, is you are not buying your forever home. You're buying that step-up home that 5, 7, 10 years later gets you equity, gets you into the game, so that way someday you can afford your forever home. So it's $1,200 more expensive to buy versus rent if we're looking at monthly payment to monthly payment. That's where so many people stop right there. And they're just like, nope, never going to buy a house. It's cheaper to rent. And if you just look at cash flow and monthly payment, you're not wrong. It is cheaper to rent, especially in Denver, than it is to buy. But so many people are missing different parts of buying. And we're going to take this little house that's currently for sale on Stewart Street as an example. So it's listed for $424,000. It's got 2 bedrooms, a nice little backyard for a dog. A lot of times when you're living in a condo that's a 2-bedroom condo, you don't have a place for your dog. So then let's zoom out just a little bit. We have all of these other benefits of buying that you don't have when you rent. So I'm going to bring the rent down to $2,000 just for easy math. If we're renting for $2,000 a month, what is our interest rate? Our interest rate's not 6.75%. On renting, it's 100%. Every single dollar that you are paying that landlord or that company, you're not getting back. So if you zoom out 9 years, you've paid $2,000 a month times 12. That's $24,000 a year in rent payments times 9. That is $216,000 in rent over that 9-year period. When you move out of that rental, you might get your security deposit back. So this is why I like to look at home buying with data. So this custom appreciation I put at 3.5%. There's an in the Denver market, that is a low end estimate of what appreciation has happened in the last 50 years. Oh, and I'm sorry that it's a little blurry. I don't know why. So this is only looking after 5 years. So this right here, this is a rent to, this is if you sold your house 5 years later, your appreciation gain would go up if I'm using a custom appreciation at 3.5%, $79,000. So that home price in 5 years from now, so we're talking 2031, it probably won't be the price that you bought it. So here is a chart of the Denver appreciation gain throughout the years. Home and condos have appreciated at 6.5% for single family homes and 5.6% annually for over 51 years. And this is from 1973 to 2024. That's the data that I had on hand. So I'm using a conservative estimate as I'm running this number on when does it make sense to buy versus sell or buy versus rent. Appreciation is also known as inflation in a different term. So I also want to think back. I graduated in 2006, 20 years ago from high school. 20 years ago, my parents used to hand me a $5 for lunch money. We got $25 for a week that we could spend on lunch money. $5, if I don't have kids, but if my sister handed her kids $5 for lunch money every single day, that would go nowhere in 2026 prices. Homes are subject to inflation, just like any other product, which is one of the reasons why every year you see home price appreciation gains. And I have a chart later in this presentation showing the annual appreciation across the US historically. Then you have something called amortization gain. That monthly payment that you pay every single month that's higher than rent, that monthly payment doesn't just go to nowhere. Some part of that monthly payment every single month goes into your little piggy bank in what's called amortization gain. You started with a $384,000 loan, and then you went down to $360,000 loan. That is you paying down your loan by $23,000 in that 5 years that you lived there. So yes, there are closing costs associated with buying a home, and you have to factor those in, and that's where all of these, you have a $64,000 cash flow difference. That's monthly payment to monthly payment. Then you've got purchase closing costs. It costs money to buy a house, and you have to pay fees like title insurance, lender fees, title insurance, lender fees. You have to pay a whole year of homeowners insurance up front. That is going to be your purchase price or purchase cost. Right now, what's amazing is that 69% of all sellers are actually paying buyers' closing costs at about $10,000 right now, even paying towards interest rate buydowns, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Then, if you sell it in 5 years, if you have a 6% cost to sell, it also costs you money. So all in, if we're factoring in everything, if you sold this house 5 years later, you'd make $8,000 off of appreciation gain, amortization gain, minus all of the costs associated, including that cash flow difference. But if you were only looking to hold that house for 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't make sense to buy because you're not holding on to the home long enough to make it make sense. Now, if you lived in that home, which the average person right now is living in a home 7 years, then you're up $33,000. Fast forward to 9 years later, then you've got $67,000 in equity just for sleeping in the same house every night. That's probably better than the rental anyway, because it's got that yard for the dog and is a single family house. So if we only look at cash flow, which is your monthly payment to monthly payment, that's where renting makes sense. But if you zoom out and look at how much in appreciation on a low end average, how much you look at paying yourself, then after each of that 5th year, it's going to make sense to buy versus rent. Now, one little caveat is that appreciation gain is not guaranteed. And I'm actually going to fast forward to this chart because I should have put it right here. But this is the appreciation rates in the US from 1950 to 2024. Almost every single year except for 1990, 1991, and 2007, 2011, home prices have appreciated. What happened with the major losses in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, that was due to the financial crisis. Why is that such a multiple year depreciation? That's because lenders could get somebody a loan without verifying that they could actually afford the home, and people went underwater on their homes. Lending standards since 2008 has changed, which is why since then we've seen purchase price appreciation. In 2026 and 2025, because this chart doesn't go quite as recent, we've seen a softening in home price appreciation. In the Denver market, we've seen a slight cooling, where in certain neighborhoods, we do see a negative. If I'm buying that home right now, I don't see that as a bad thing, because essentially it's giving you a little red tag that's saying, hey, this home is on sale. So that is, appreciation is not guaranteed, but from 1950 to today, it's been pretty great track record of increased growth. And so one of the things that as you're thinking about buying a house, where do you see home prices in 2030? Based on information that we have, a 3.5% appreciation gain is probably pretty conservative. The other question that I always get is now a good time to buy? And my favorite answer, again, is it depends. It's really when you are ready. One of the best times in history to buy a house was during the 2020 and 2021 housing market. We had artificially deflated interest rates. We had rates in the 2s and the 3%, which made monthly payments like amazing. And I would love to be able to offer 2 and 3% interest rates again. I just don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. But people had to put in 20 to so many offers. They had to go over ask by 20, 30. I even saw a client put in an offer $100,000 over asking. They had to waive inspections, waive appraisals. Literally, you had to give your firstborn child away to get a seller to accept your offer. Today's market, while interest rates are elevated, they're not the highest that we've ever seen. Back in the 80s, interest rates were 18%. Today's rate is floating in the mid 6s. You have negotiating power. You can say, hey, seller, I want you to pay the closing costs. Hey, seller, I'll buy your house, but I want you to come down $10K and I want you to pay the closing costs. You see, that's what I'm talking about in seller concessions, where they're paying the closing costs. You get the right to an inspection. I've seen multiple houses this year that they say, I don't really like that roof. Seller, I want you to use your insurance money to replace this roof before we'll buy your house. There's more inventory, which means there's more houses for you to choose from. You don't have to make a $500,000 decision in literally 15 minutes of, oh my gosh, offers are due by 5 p.m. today. You just walked out at 3 p.m. and you're like, I don't know. There's not as much buyer's remorse because people do have the options. In 2020 and 2021, when decisions felt rushed, they went under contract, they closed on the house, and then they're like, ooh, actually, I don't love this neighborhood, but I have a 2.5% interest rate, so I can't really sell it, and I can't really get anything else. So when should you not buy? You should not buy when you have job instability. You don't know if you're going to lose your job anytime soon. You want to make sure that that's super stable. If you don't plan on staying in a house long, maybe you are only in Denver for 2 years. Based on those numbers, it doesn't make sense to buy, because really to break even, you need at least 3 years. I always like to tell people, plan on staying there for 5 years. If you're using every single penny you own to close on the house, not a good time. You want to be able to save up for funds, like if your air conditioning goes out and you need to replace the air conditioning, or the water heater isn't working, or if the payment would make you house poor. We already went through that. So the two main things that are preventing home ownership today is down payment and monthly payment. There are so many options for down payment assistance program, even for people that do not or who have owned a home before. So this is just an example of putting 3% down. So this on this $449,000 home. Oh, I don't even know how I did that. I just drew on it. $449,000 home. They're putting $13,000 down. They're getting a down payment assistance of 4%. So that's wiping their entire down payment because they're getting $17,000 in down payment assistance, which on this particular program, they would have to pay back when they go to sell or refinance the home. Then they've negotiated seller credits to pay for the closing costs. So essentially, they're just walking into the house for the $1,000 minimum borrow contribution. You can literally get into a home you own for cheaper than you can get into a new, into a rental. Now, how do we lower that monthly payment? This is where this option might come in. But most of the times, if you want to lower that monthly payment, you need to have a little bit more cash than getting that $1,000 out of pocket. This is what's called a 2-1 buy down. There's all different types of buy downs, but a 2-1 buy down. So if you came in with your own down payment of the $12,000, your own closing costs, so your cash to close is $25,000, then you could use seller funds and seller credit to buy down your interest rate to 4.875 for the first year, then 5.875 for the second year. Then it would go up to the fully amortized rate of the 3,300. And that's what I like to call the stair step approach. So if you think you're going to be making more money later and you're used to paying this rent and you just want to like stair step that monthly payment a little bit higher, kind of like rent's increasing every year, then this is a good option for clients. These are an example of all the different down payment assistance programs that are available. And there's even more than this, but 1% down, community lending, 3% down, 0 down if we do an FHA loan. And really, when you work with a lender, when you work with a lender, what I'm going to do is shop all these different programs and pick out, based on your goals, what's your down payment goal? What's your monthly payment goal? What's your credit score look like? Pick out the best option for you. So that's one way to lower the monthly payment. Or you could do what I did in order to get into a house. Oh, whoops. I totally had those slides backwards. We're going to rewind. You can either do seller paid upfront mortgage insurance. That could reduce, use a seller credit of like 12 grand to pay upfront mortgage insurance where you don't have a $200 mortgage insurance if you put under 20% down. You could do a permanent rate buy down, which is you could use a seller credit to permanently buy down the rate. You could maybe use a adjustable rate mortgage where the rate might be a point less than a 30-year fixed. Or maybe it's not anything to do with the mortgage at all. Maybe it's just restructuring your entire debt. Let's say you have a car loan at $700 and you only owe 10 grand on it, and you have credit card payments. Instead of putting that like $40,000 down towards the house, maybe we use one of those down payment assistance programs for the house and we get rid of the $700 car payment. So now your overall spend each month is lower. That's what strategic reviewing of your goals looks like. And then this is where or you can do what I did, which is house hacking. It is easier to buy a house in your 20s and 30s before you have kids because you're used to living with roommates or being flexible with housing. So I'm going to share a quick video. I hope I shared the sound, and I don't know how to share the sound right now if it's not already shared. So I apologize. Let me know if you can hear it. Can you put in the chat if you can hear or not? Can you hear that video? Oops. Okay, perfect. Can't hear. Okay. Can you hear? Oh, wait. You can't hear the video. Okay. So as the video plays, I'll just talk through what I'm saying on the video. Thank you. Okay. So this is my house here. That's a single family house. I put in a path so that Airbnb guests could go around the back. I can go in the front. So this is, they enter through the backyard.
Their own private entrance with a keypad lock, which is key. So then they would go down there, and then I will close those doors.
And then I put in these little doors that are sliding. So I live upstairs and I rent out my basement.
Down here with a couch.
And it just has a coffee pot and wine glasses. I don't even have a kitchen. It doesn't have a stove.
Don't even have a microwave. I just have a coffee pot, wine glasses, and a wine opener. And it's just a little 1 bedroom.
And then short-term rental guests, it's just a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it makes between $2,000 and $3,000 a month by renting out the basement. So strategically looking at homes is also a strategy where your monthly payment might be $3,400, but if you found a house that you could create what I like to call a sneaky duplex, where you live upstairs and you've got Airbnb guests on 1 to 2 night stays downstairs, you are running a business essentially out of your home. But then what if they're paying you $2,000 and your monthly payment is $3,800? Now that makes your overall monthly payment out of your pocket $1,800. And now you're getting into a home that you own with all that appreciation gain, with all that amortization gain, still almost paying what you would pay in rent at $1,800. I have a whole website with resources on house hacking called the househackplaybook.com, where it walks you through tutorials, what is house hacking. I've interviewed past clients who house hack, how much they're making on house hacking. It has links to, an Airbnb where you can get, if you sign up, you get a little Airbnb credit for starting your house on house hacking. There's all different resources there. So if you're interested in making money off of a home and that's how you think you'll be able to afford that jump from what you're paying in rent to a home you own, it's a great place to start. One of my favorite questions I like to ask first-time home buyers is, what are you willing to sacrifice? I was willing to sacrifice my privacy by having Airbnb guests in my basement or living with 2 roommates. Sorry, I just got is there a specific zoning to look in order to have an Airbnb? Yes. However, every place in the Denver metro area, if it is your primary residence, it is allowed for short-term rentals. Where it is no longer allowed, and it depends on municipalities, is if it is an investment property. The only place I know of surrounding Denver is Parker. Parker does not allow short-term rentals, even if it is your primary residence. And even on that, check me. I haven't checked that for at least 8 months. But last time I checked, Parker did not allow. So if it is your primary residence and you're doing what I'm saying of house hacking, you live upstairs, you have Airbnb guests in the basement, it is good to go. Denver, Littleton, Aurora, everywhere that I know allows for short-term rentals as long as the primary is or as long as the house is your primary residence. What other ways are do people sacrifice in order for their future self, right? So you're thinking 9 years from now, right? If you just look at today and who you are today, a lot of people are like, no, I'm comfortable. I don't want to buy. But if you look at your 30 years from now when you have a paid off mortgage and all you're paying is taxes and insurance, you are so happy that you sacrificed when you're 24, 34, 40. Maybe it means that you have to live a little bit farther outside of town. Maybe it's like Aurora or Commerce City and it's not Rhino right away. Maybe it's a fixer-upper and you're handy and you can put in a little TLC to it and you're getting the place that hasn't been updated in the 80s and you're tearing out that shag carpet. Maybe it's giving up the luxuries like DoorDash or the car that is $1,000 monthly payment when literally if you sold your car, you could afford to buy. Those are the things that I see every day and have conversations with clients of like, how important is this goal to you? Because there's a way to make it possible if you're willing to put in the work. What are you willing to sacrifice? Maybe it's time. I worked 2 part-time jobs, or I worked a part-time job and a full-time job as I was saving up to buy a house so that I had a larger down payment so that the monthly payment was in line. Those are all things. It doesn't just come like that. And I think that in 2026 terms, So many first-time home buyers are wanting to buy their dream house before they just get started, and they're not willing to sacrifice anything. And 15 years from now, they're going to be regretting that they didn't at least put in the work now to be able to retire when they're 55, or say, like, they're not just grinding. So I share tips and tricks on home buying every week. If you're interested in following me on Instagram, so that way we can stay connected, this is my Instagram link. I'll leave it up here for a little bit. And then if you're interested in your own buy versus rent consultation, then on the next page here, I will have a link or a QR code for you to book a free 15-minute consult. We don't need to do a credit pull unless you want a full pre-approval. We can just start a roadmap, because what I'm finding is that people just don't know what's possible, and they don't even know that they are, closer than they think to home buying. And so if we just start with a conversation of like, hey, let's do a 15-minute consult. If that 15-minute consult is like, yeah, I think you're totally ready to buy a home, let's start strategizing. Then let's do a soft credit pull, get you into the game. If it's like, okay, you want a $500,000 home, based on what you said, you're probably more at like 150. I might give you tips and tricks to how to get there. My philosophy is, if not now, how to create that roadmap so that you can get from point A to point B, and you've got concrete steps of how to get there. So if you are interested, or you know of somebody that is interested, feel free to book that consult. On the next slide, I think I have my contact information if you don't end up booking a consult. And while I have this up, I'm going to open it up to any other questions. Feel free to pop them in the chat or go off mute. And happy to answer any other questions anybody on might have. No questions. I covered everything.
So Danielle, I think thanks so much for going through all of that. I think that also what I heard as part of this either discovery call or strategy session, or that preliminary consult, is really seeing if there are some reserves, or are some savings, or are some funds maybe that that some of our potential clients, since I'm an agent, right, and I'm attending as an agent, have. Then it could be a really good idea to get with somebody that does this all the time, to really be able to see where to best spend the efforts or resources that have already been either saved up or will be saved up, in order to get the most benefit, right, from those
Oh,
efforts or resources.
100%. I feel like one of the number one things I see with first-time homebuyers is they come to a lender too late.
Hmm.
Like, it's okay to come to me and you're not buying a house for a year or two. You don't know
Hmm.
what you don't know. Right? And I
Yeah.
think, and we've got some other agents on the call too, and I would say that's the number one complaint I have with agents, is they are like, oh, well, they're not going to buy yet. I don't want to waste your time. It's like they need me to be able
Hmm.
to help you, help them in the future get to a house. And I would say a lot of agents are like, oh, like, well, they don't know if they're going to buy or not. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to buy or not until I know, what does the monthly payment look like? What does my cash to close look like? Um, all of that
Yeah.
clarity. And I think that clarity provides the confidence to move forward one way or another. They might
Hmm.
be, okay, I'm definitely not staying in Denver. I plan to get to Texas within the next 5 years. After consult with Danielle, I'm like, I don't want to buy, but maybe I will buy in Texas. You're like, and now I know what it
Hmm.
takes. Or on that, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that my $700 Audi was preventing me from buying a car. Maybe when on a lease renewal, I'm going to go with the Honda where it's only 200 bucks, and now I've just increased my purchase price dramatically.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Being able to have those eyes to get that, like that roadmap, right,
Yeah.
as you say. So,
Yep.
okay.
Exactly. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Was this helpful?
Hey Danielle,
Hi.
can we get some more information on first time home buyer?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking first time home buyer, are you talking down payment assistance? Are you talking, what are you talking?
Probably down payment assistance, yeah.
Okay.
The benefits of being a first time home buyer.
Okay. Yep. So if we didn't use down payment assistance, the benefit would be that you get 3% down. So everybody else has to put 5% down. A first time home buyer can put 3% down. The other benefit, depending on your income level, you get a break in interest rate. So if you don't use a first time home buyer program, your rate is lower than market rate if you're under what's called 80% of AMI. In Denver, we're in a high cost area, so your benefit is under $14,000 a month. So if you make less income than $14,000 a month, you get a better interest rate than somebody that makes more than that. On the down payment assistance program, you're only required. I'm going to go back to this slide. Okay. On your down payment assistance, you're only required to put 3% down, which is $13,000. But you can get a down payment assistance program of $17,448. So essentially, it's covering your entire down payment plus some for closing costs. So you could get into a home, even if it's a $600,000 home, for $1,000 out of pocket. Now, you do have to pay back what you borrowed in this particular program. And that's where like if you're interested in learning more about like what makes sense for you, that's where I would book a consult, like a no obligation consult with me of just like let's see, like what is your credit score? Are we at 620 or are we at 800? That's going to depend on, are we going an FHA loan or are we going conventional? Because your mortgage insurance payments will be different. Now, so that's the benefit, is most first-time home buyer benefits is just that you, one, can get a better interest rate if you're under a certain amount income limit, and two, that you can put less down. And in the Denver market, if you make under 200K combined income, that's literally 4%. You only have to put 3%. So it like wipes out your entire down payment. Was that helpful?
Yes. Thank you.
Amazing. I'll go back to this. Okay. So yeah, if you want to be like, hey, I want to know what mine looks like. Again, I don't have to pull a hard credit pull. It can be just napkin. I like to call it a napkin pre-qualification. So many people think that I'm scary as a lender. They're like, I don't want to talk to a lender. That's so scary. I try not to be scary. We just try to have a real conversation of like, what are we trying to do? How can I help you get there? And yeah, so please, if you're interested, just fill out that little 15-minute, it's a quick little phone call and we can dive in. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate some of my agent partners, some partners that had clients on, and some potential new partners and people that just found me on Instagram. So anyway, I'm Danielle Anderson. I'm a mortgage lender here in the Denver metro area. My goal is just to help you get to where you want to be strategically. So feel free to reach out, call, email, anything. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. Take care, guys.